Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order of the January 12th. We are going to probably, well, let's go ahead and we did the roll call, so we do have a quorum, so let's just go ahead and approve the minutes of October 27th. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes, or did everyone get the minutes?
I did read them. No,
Okay.
I don't have it.
It's been a long time ago, Dale. I can't remember.
Well, they're only back on October.
I move that we accept the minutes as printed.
Okay,
Second.
okay, we have a motion and second to approve the October 27th minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so right now we'll go into electing the board chair, vice chair, and secretary. So
So currently you're the chair. Do we
Yes.
have a vice chair?
Have we ever had a vice chair?
We did,
Yeah,
yes,
the shared job.
Yvonne
Oh,
is the vice chair, but she did not want to be the secretary, so we split it.
he was for a while.
I was,
Yeah,
yeah.
so currently we,
Let's see, who's not-
Sandy was the secretary.
Are we currently keeping those separate? So
We
they
don't
can
have
roll?
to. If someone wants to do both roles, I think it's fine to do both roles, that,
Mhm.
you know, it's just if Dale is not able to run the meeting, someone would run the meeting.
Mhm.
So
I'm not able right now. Can somebody take over?
should we start with the chair? Do we have any volunteers or nominations
I
for chair?
nominate Dale. He's doing a great job.
Any other,
do you have to be re-upped for your position as chairman?
yeah, any other nominations for chair?
I would say Dale.
Okay, let's vote on Dale as chair.
Yeah.
I move.
Okay.
Dale for
Seconded.
chair.
Oh, you seconded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay.
You're right, Dale.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hello, Dale. Welcome back.
Maybe.
You heard the railroad whistle.
So my recommendation is Yvonne was just put in place, I think, at the last meeting as the vice chair.
Mm.
If you're all right with keeping her the vice chair, and then we can check with her when she comes back. That might be a route that you could take, because she has not been in place very
Well,
long.
is someone going to take the minutes of this meeting?
I will, that reverts to me, and then we can, when we have a full board, we can see if we can get someone to volunteer
So
or nominate
Yvonne
for
would just be
secretary.
the vice chair, not the secretary.
She was not interested in being the secretary, so I think either way, we should address this at a meeting where you have more
More people.
members.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
does that sound okay?
Okay.
Because those two things can be on hold. We do need a chair to keep the meetings going.
Or
Okay.
would you be interested in the
The
vice chair? and
I think Yvonne should take it with the vice chair. I might be interested in the secretary if they want to keep it separated.
Yeah.
It was too much for me last year, with the car accident and all that.
Yeah.
So.
If you,
Oh, if
someone
you
wants
wanna
to
do-
nominate Rose and you want to take care of it.
Oh, I heard her say that.
Well, I didn't have a laptop tonight, so.
That's okay. I can do
You
these.
can do minutes, okay.
I propose to have Rose here as Rose Bricker as our secretary.
Okay,
You want to include Yvonne in that motion?
yeah.
Yes, if
If she wants to step down, she can,
as
but
vice chair,
yeah, as vice chair, but you can take care
I
of
would
it.
love for her to be the vice chair.
Okay. Do we have a second for
Second.
the two of them? Okay.
I don't know.
who- Now, you said this is for the
Secretary.
secretary.
Yeah.
Secretary and.
Rose-
We're doing Rose as the secretary.
I'll do secretary.
Yvonne as the vice chair.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Good.
And can we vote on that?
I got enough to do. I don't need to do this.
Okay, so all those in favor of the Rose as the secretary and Yvonne as the,
Vice chair.
you know what?
Vice chair.
Vice chair, yeah, okay.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Is it my imagination or is this little group getting thinner and thinner?
Well, when we have, the new park board members and
There's two
people
new ones.
leaving.
Oh.
Yes.
Two new
so-
ones that were just appointed on Monday.
Right.
This Monday.
Oh, at the city council?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
And
Scott
Dale
decided.
is actually going to add that on as an agenda item, 3.1, and we're gonna shift the other items down. Just so everyone knows,
Add what?
the new board members. He's gonna announce the new board members.
Okay,
They're not here, but he's
So,
going to announce them.
okay.
Oh,
How come they're not here to this, at this meeting?
We'll get there. Let's have David announce them.
So.
They're the last two here.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay, we have Scott Allen, 332 South 19th Street.
Yeah, don't give all his personal info.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can
Okay.
give that, but
Okay, and then the other one is Tyler Pellet,
What's his Scott's last name?
Austin.
Austin.
Yeah, that's
Austin.
what I,
I don't think I know him.
and Tyler Phillips.
Mhm.
Anybody know Scott?
No. No,
do not know
I don't
Scott.
know, but they're,
No, Tyler.
So Tyler was unable to come this evening due to some scheduling conflicts, but he is working on that. There is a possibility that I might have to reach out to you before the February meeting and see about alternate days and times. He's working really hard to try to get, so he can come to this day and time, but if he cannot, we probably need to make our best effort to see if we can find an alternate day and time so that he can stay as a board member since he was just appointed. Scott, I have not heard from him yet, so he may just not have seen our email. Being that it was only Monday night that he was appointed, so it's just been a couple days since he received email from us, so.
were they at that meeting, do you know?
I don't know, there were some people there that clearly were on some boards or committees, but I'm not sure who they were. They didn't, have them come up or
Yeah,
anything,
but I
so,
didn't make that meeting.
yeah, so I'm not sure.
Tyler and his family plays.
Oh.
Family.
Never heard that family
Tradition.
band.
And then now they're called,
Okay.
they have a new name now.
You're right.
Oh, I think I remember.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have that. Now, let's see. Now we're going to music in the park planning schedule. So I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Okay. Write my numbering off. I don't wanna forget that. One was the board elections, two was the members. Here we go, music in the park. Okay. So I did include in your packet a little list of things that we talked about these last year in January. Some of them are new based off discussions that we had last year. And then a calendar that's proposing the dates for music in the park.
You just put that online, didn't you?
I don't think this is online yet. This was just in the packet, so I'd like to just go down the list that's on the agenda item summary
Mhm.
and just discuss these a little bit. So sponsorship is number one. Last year, we did change the sponsorship structure a little bit. The feedback that was received at that time was that there were some sponsors that wished that we had reached out to them prior to putting it out for everyone, because they'd been sponsors for previous years. So I'm just proposing that we reach out to the sponsors that we had last year and then put out for additional sponsors.
Yeah.
I think if we can keep our primary sponsor, that would be great. It's on our banners and such, so it would be good if we didn't have to redo our banners, but
That
if
would
we
be Pioneer Connect.
Pioneer Connect.
Pioneer Connection, does Russell Watkins?
We had
trucking?
Russell Watkins, and we had Pheasant Court Winery and the Philomath. They do the classes for
Max
parents,
Activity?
parents, parenting classes.
Oh, rural families? No.
Strengthening rural families.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
So could reach out to them, and then this year, because we have added this into our budget, so if you'll remember before, there was a little bit of an issue on how that worked, bringing in potentially more funds than we had allocated for that year. We do have the ability to have more sponsorships, which might help to get some of the things that you've talked about last year. It was, well, we'd like to have a sandwich board that we can put out in front, and things like that, that we didn't have funds for. But now that it's a budget item, we have the ability to potentially ask the budget committee for items. So if we are getting X amount of dollars in and can show them, we're bringing this in and we're going to request after July 1st, it would be after July 1st, but that we want to buy a sign. So we want to ask that budget be, put be increased by up $200. So we do have that capability now.
That's good.
And then it would be reviewed by the council and the budget committee and they can approve it.
Were there,
I'm wondering if the way I understand when this private project gets done on Main Street, the streetscape, that the state of Oregon was supposed to give us the say on this, from curb to curb. They give us a say, so they don't have a say of what we can hang across the time
Oh,
in the city limits. The way I understand.
across the highway?
The big man here probably knows.
That was a discussion that. I
You mean
heard as
like a
well.
banner? that
Like
was-
banners. I don't know that we're ready to have that discussion yet. I know Public Works has expressed that they are not interested in hanging things, but it doesn't mean that we couldn't have a program potentially. So yes, in the future, that's a few years out, but once we get to that point, I think we'll have that discussion. There are other groups that have also asked about it.
Mhm.
So I think we will be looking at whether or not that's gonna be a feasible option.
were there sponsors that had participated before that got missed last year?
No, it was primarily our larger sponsor, had wanted to, last year, we had an amount that we could, and they wanted to give us that whole amount and just be the only sponsor.
Oh, gotcha.
But I think last year you had all talked about wanting to give other businesses
Right,
the
smart,
ability, which
equitable
is why we
process.
made
Yeah.
the different dollar amounts.
Gotcha.
So if you're wanting to still suggest that we do that so that more businesses can potentially have their name there. We can still have our key primary sponsor
Mhm.
that we're trying to get, just so we can kind of get going and get the bands in place. And then we can have it open for additional sponsors.
So as far as that banner thing goes, nothing's really gonna be happening until they're done with the streetscape.
Yeah, it's a few years.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
But the banner you were talking about was the one that we have at the park
The
and
one in the
at,
park and the one that
Dale
we had
Collins
down by
Park.
the Dale Collins
Gotcha.
Park.
And that one already, those logos that are on that banner are like permanent. They're not removable.
Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah. Okay,
Do we get time on the reader board?
we do.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Okay, is
The
that
city's
something
good
we have to
about
set
doing
up ahead of time or?
Ruth,
Just-
posts just when she gets the dates from me
Yeah.
and she just schedules it in.
Yeah, that's,
Yep.
you're good at doing it. Also, just an aside, thank you for doing the Roman ones too.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So are you good with moving forward with me, just kind of doing the sponsorship like we did last year, but we can have more of those lower level sponsors?
Makes sense, sure.
I think it provides more opportunities for businesses, so I would support that.
Okay.
And I even was wondering, because it seems to me last year, weren't some of the sponsors like Pheasant Court, they chose a particular date?
Mhm. Oh,
or was
Particular
that-
band.
Oh, did they?
Particular, but Pheasant Court they asked to make sure that we mentioned them at a specific band.
Oh, that's right.
But what we ended up doing is mentioning all of
Okay.
those additional sponsors at each one, just to keep it less complicated. And that was because before the structure was more of a band sponsorship,
That's true. Mhm.
right? So we did restructure it a little bit last year and I think what,
it's gonna be a lot easier to manage doing it to where we are now.
Yeah.
Because before it was
Make it more
getting the
generic.
band and trying to figure out who to get a sponsor to do it,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I will go forward with putting that information out and contacting a couple folks. Volunteers, last year, several of you had discussed potentially looking at some other groups that might be willing to also volunteer. I know you talked through a couple of different things, having maybe students or Philomath Performing Arts, reaching out to them and see if they want to lend any help to volunteer at the events to just, facilitate the event, basically. I don't know if you're still interested in reaching out to anyone or if any of you have connections with anyone in particular that you would like to reach out to.
What would the job be or
What,
duties?
what do you mean?
Well, I
kids
think
pass
what we ran
jar.
into last year was some issues with
Oh, yeah.
getting enough people of you folks, you
Attending.
volunteers, to
Oh.
attend all of the concerts and fulfill the the volunteer
Mhm.
jobs, duties. So it was a little spotty at times. And I think that you had talked last year about, it would be nice if you had
Oh.
some additional help or I think one of the things that you all had like the idea was trying to look for music students. It is summer.
Oh,
It's a
I see.
little more difficult, but you know, I imagine, I know Yvonne has some connections
Mhm,
to
she
the
does.
schools and
Mhm.
students, and then Plymouth Performing Arts Benefit Fund.
Mhm.
So if you're interested in still looking into that, I can reach out and see if Yvonne
Maybe she has a contact.
has a contact
Yep.
and wants to check in on that and see if she can help coordinate something like that.
And does the Performing Arts Benefit Fund, do they have a board or?
They have a board, yeah.
Okay.
So last year, as you also know, we restructured the donations and how that worked. And by the end of the summer, it was working well. I think almost all of the concerts had a board member come and pick the funds up.
Mhm.
Which seemed to work, and I got good feedback from them. They actually have a letter in here about our donations, and yeah, they seemed like they were fine doing that. I haven't asked them again if they're fine doing it again.
Mhm.
But I don't know if they have additional capacity. Like, do they have people who would be willing to
Parents,
volunteer and
students.
come take on, helping to run one of these things? And then it might take less park board members at each meeting. You can have your park board ambassador,
Mm.
but that way, if we run into one of those situations where everyone happens to be gone, you have a backup, because I know that
Yeah, I thought we had someone that was dealing with the funds, the KVG,
yeah,
and then she takes it and gets it to the proper.
right,
That was the board member that came,
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
but we're talking beyond that.
Yeah, we just talked about
More
reaching
bodies.
out to them to see if they wanted to partner a little bit more on it,
Sure.
or if they knew of a volunteer base that might want to help partner on it. I mean, one of the things you mentioned was walking around to get the funds. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a music student
Wearing a shirt that has the logo.
wearing a shirt, walking around asking for the funds, that's where they're going, and that is one of the primary things that you talked about last year was the getting the funds from people, and
Well, and having the people know what the funds are for.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's- a lot of people
Yeah.
asked,
Yeah.
but they knew, I mean, the sign is right on the.
we do have the flyer, but just to, I mean, it would be nice,
More
right?
personal
If-
touch.
If you could get some students to come, at least to a few of them, and I think it really would, it shows people, this is who you're providing funds for.
Right.
I think our
So-
new members should be involved too.
Yes.
I
They-
don't say nothing.
Hopefully they will be.
Initiation.
Hopefully
We
they
have to
will
be
be.
there at every
I'm hearing that you're signing them up.
Once it's, it's nothing kids too much, but once they're out of school,
Yeah,
it's hard to get them to come in
It is.
and volunteer.
It is.
I mean,
but on the other thing,
I've had deals where you try to get them to do something, but you get them out of school, they're on the
oh, sure,
spot,
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if the program could incentivize it by, like, you have certain volunteer hours that you have to do. Like, I mean, I think they could work it on their side to make it incentivized
The
for
high
the
school has
kids to come.
2 hours, or 2 hours of community service.
I don't know what it is now.
Oh, I have no idea. Yeah.
Must be 2 hours, I thought, the community service.
Okay, well, we can talk to them and see if they have any ideas to brainstorm for it. I'll reach out.
Okay, that's a good idea.
See if they have ideas for it, or if they like the idea. Okay, donation collection, we had this on the list last year.
Just a minute, sir. Yes, go ahead.
We have a member of the audience that would like to speak.
Yes.
One of the things, just
Anybody
put
know?
in your note, one of the things we've had success with is to reach out to the sponsors and ask them if they want to provide
Mm.
volunteers for a night.
That's a good idea.
Because, if it's the bank or it's whatever, they won't commit for forever, but you might be able to commit them to a specific night, and then they'll bring 4, 5, 6 people
Got
to
it.
help a night.
Good idea.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then they can get up and talk about themselves.
They can wear their
That's
shirts.
true.
Yeah.
There was one bank employee who was at a number of the concerts.
Mhm.
I don't know if she was at all of them, but she was at quite a few of them.
Yeah, And I think that's, if I'm remembering correct, that's kind of what you were talking about last year was we're raising funds for the performing arts.
There's no representation.
There's no representation. And you did mention even would they maybe want to have a table or just
Mhm.
something that gives people more connection?
Mhm.
So I'll reach out to them and just see if they like any of the
That's good.
ideas or open to them and get some feedback from
Okay.
them. But thank you, member of the audience, Chris Workman, I'll note your name in the minutes.
I was gonna shut up.
Yeah.
There's a reason.
Anytime you shut up, I said, be quiet.
So I think we've got the donation collections down that went well last year, had the QR code.
Mhm.
You were all giving both options, had people doing both options. I think that went well. That was the one suggestion you had was, could there be a table? It would take an additional volunteer.
Right.
That's
So you talked about that, but if there was a table that they had a little banner
Mhm.
and someone sat there, you thought that could add to people donating because there's stuff fixed.
Yeah,
You know,
it's more.
Now, that QR code, I think we had a pretty good response.
Yeah, you did. I mean, I think you had, yeah, some people that definitely used that. Okay. Band selection. I am planning to follow the process as last year, so put the open the applications on the website after this meeting.
Can we do
have
flyers?
What's that?
Flyers?
Do some flyers. Yeah, I
Cool.
forgot. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Flyers. That was an important part of it. And then try to get that all back to you, have it due about February 22nd, so you can review it again, and then that you'll all make your recommendations or discuss that at the March 9th meeting.
So where did those go out to?
So last year, Rose was really instrumental in distributing those flyers.
Okay.
Hey there.
Hi.
Do we contact the ones that were here last year?
Yes, yeah, I'll reach out to all of them.
I put them up in like music stores downtown, here, post office, message boards, coffee shops, that sort of thing.
Post office
Um,
may not.
I think they took down their bulletin board, didn't they? Yeah, you're right.
They don't want to put up anything that is to do with money.
Mhm.
And then there was a couple of Corvallis groups on Facebook that I posted to as well. And we did that for the craft and booths,
Mhm.
and that was a big response too.
And last year we got more musical groups than we needed.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
I think.
I just want to note that Yvonne McMillan joined us at 5:25.
Hey, Yvonne,
I'm glad you're
Hi,
here.
I was
You're lucky.
thinking
You-
5:30.
you're only chairing 4 committees.
Oh, wow.
We might not.
Oh, I used to be late.
Yeah.
Well, shoot.
Just let me know what they are sometime.
I have had some bands reaching out already.
Joe, that's great.
Yeah,
Wow.
so, and not bands that we had last year.
Really?
Well, and I know you talked about this, and Dale talked about last year, how, it was kind of, will this be the third or fourth year?
I think this is the 5th year, was it
This is the fifth
2018?
year.
No, this is
2018.
For music in the
be the
past.
6th year, I think.
Just-
2017.
Just the momentum
Oh.
that.
Oh,
Mhm.
oh, yeah.
gathers.
Yeah.
So just people will now start thinking, oh, yeah, we got that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it took us a couple of months or nights of bands and pretty soon it caught on in the community.
Mhm.
And we have no less than 100 people there.
Mhm.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
last year was really good.
Yeah,
turnout.
no, that's great.
And Sundays and Thursdays,
Mhm.
were they both well attended?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
it
they
looked
are.
like it to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. They both were.
I felt like last year, the band selection process, that meeting that we had, it was a
Mhm.
little bit hard because not everybody had a chance to listen or
Yes.
couldn't access what was offered.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if we could clean up that process, maybe
Yes.
have like a computer that's designated with YouTube up so we can like play the music for our board members, or would that take too much time?
It
Maybe
might.
have like different requirements for, like, I know someone was on Instagram and they only had an
Mhm.
Instagram link, and if you don't have Instagram, you
Yes.
can't access it.
That one was.
Someone
was
will
difficult.
send you a little cassette or whatever that's with their music.
The CD.
Yeah.
A
Yeah, I
CD,
think most everyone sent links. I
That's what I
think
thought.
some people did have issues accessing. the
Yeah,
links.
Yeah.
I think that was it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to make a selection when we're talking about like, it sounds like this, instead of just being able to hit play and actually
Mhm.
play the music for the board.
Right. We did have a little less time, I think, between
That's true.
the
True.
meeting and the deadline last year.
Yeah.
I did try to give a little bit more time
Mhm.
because last year, and that was kind of unexpected. We ended up with a lot of bands, so it was a lot to go through.
Yep.
So there was that too. One thing that we could do between now and then is maybe talk about, not tonight necessarily, but just at the February meeting, what types of music you might like to see and try, how you would like to try to make the variety. Last year, I know it was important to have some
Mhm.
variety,
Mhm.
so you can kind of think about that. You reached out to the high school band
Mhm.
last year, right?
Yeah, and they're already scheduled.
They
this
they
year,
are,
yeah.
so we did talk to the superintendent.
They're not available? or
Today.
They are, yeah.
They are,
They grab
have you
that- the
confirmed
first
with
one?
them?
The high,
The first one in May.
Have you
yeah,
confirmed
I
with
think,
them?
yeah, I haven't looked at it for a while, but,
Okay.
they've scheduled it on their music
Oh, great.
calendar for next year.
Okay,
Good.
that's good.
Okay.
Or this
Yeah,
year.
because we
This year?
got burned a couple.
Ah.
Didn't,
That's good.
Yeah,
Okay,
couldn't show up, all of a sudden told us the night of.
Oh,
Can't get-
oh.
Somebody couldn't get the bands together or something.
Mhm.
so
So
that's
hopefully-
the high school?
High school, and I
Or-
think the middle school's gonna play also,
Oh,
or
that's
have
good.
something.
good.
Great.
Okay.
Good.
So they'll do half and half on one evening?
Mhm.
And that selection committee, the night of the selection, do we get stuff ahead of time?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so last year, that's kind of what Rose was saying, not every. That maybe making the criteria on the application, which would take me a little bit longer. It was a little clunky. There was a band that only had music on Instagram.
Mhm.
And not everyone has Instagram, so most of the people couldn't
Yeah.
access the music. So yeah, let me think about that a little bit.
I mean, maybe, because I have Instagram, I could just play it on my phone, but I'm
Right.
thinking like for the band, I'm remembering there was one or two singers or performers that didn't have any kind of recorded. So we couldn't even hear
Mhm.
what their type of music was. We only got
Right.
like a description of their music.
Right,
So I
Mhm.
think, is that too much to ask to have either a sound bite or something that we could listen to or?
If they're a good enough band, they should.
I think most of them.
we should have
Yeah,
something,
I
right?
think
Yeah.
Really
Mhm.
good.
And there were a couple that
Isn't it like the
didn't.
gospel one they didn't have?
And I think I looked up something on a couple of them. I searched for them and tried to find the
Mhm.
YouTube video that
Maybe
If
set
you
it up
don't-
here, just have them on.
just happened to play.
If you don't hear,
Live
if you don't hear what they are, no. You never know what you're gonna get if you can't hear something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
if we're putting our name on this, I think we want to kind of
Right,
be able to hear
Yeah.
yeah,
that they're
definitely.
family friendly.
Okay.
Yeah, we're the
Yeah,
ones
we
who-
did write that on there, so that
Mm.
was one thing is that we did, that was a criteria.
Mhm.
It was very clear that it's family friendly.
Yes.
All ages.
Mhm.
We want appropriate content for
Mhm.
all the ages. Okay, well, let's,
And even if that isn't a criteria, maybe just like, I could work with you, making sure that we have the songs and the
Sure.
queued up and stuff, and then just making sure we have enough time to like, just do a sound bite of every
okay,
applicant.
Yeah,
Well,
let's-
if you put it on
talk
there,
about
that
that.
they have to have some sort of music so we can listen, and if they don't,
Mhm.
then that makes it real easy, then.
Their application is not
Right.
valid.
Yeah, because if they're any good, I'm sure they have it recorded
Oh, yeah.
somewhere.
Some of it was that I think part of the difficulty was some of them had an extremely long link.
Mm.
So,
Oh,
if it were me, I would go in, put the link in, make a shortened link, give you that. Not
Mm.
everyone decided knows how to do that.
Mm.
So some
Oh,
of
that's
them, we had extremely long links, and when you were all trying to type them in because they weren't emailed to us. So part of
Right.
what I could do is try to accept things in a format that might get those
Mm.
links better so that we have an actual link and we're not all trying to type it in. Because I do, and handwritten,
Mhm.
I could do just a fillable form, which would come in as a form
Yeah.
to me instead of coming in as an application that someone wrote.
Hit the ball.
beforehand.
Yeah.
Because that's where I think some of the issues were is just the handwriting. I think there were a couple of things we tried to determine and we couldn't. So you're right, it was a little clunky.
Yeah.
So I'll look at that and see if I can streamline it. And then, yes, let's, if you're all okay with it, I can work with Rose to try to
Yeah, sure.
get the music together so that you can all
Mhm.
hear it.
Just like a
and
sample.
Listen to it, yeah.
If you have, do you have time to do all that?
Do I?
I'll help you, Chelsea.
We'll
Gotcha.
find time to do it, Lindy.
You're amazing.
If you don't, you can turn it over to Chris.
You turn it on. Chris loves dropping out.
We're warning you, Chris.
Okay, so we got that solidified, the schedule. So it did not come out on my instant copy. Did it come out on anyone else's? Dale has it. We're good.
I've got it.
Okay.
The calendar?
Yeah, so these copies I printed did not show the dates.
Oh, the date.
So the 18th of May would be the schools. The 28th, which is Sunday, and then it would be June 15th and 25th. And it would be the 20th of July and the 30th of July
17th of August. That's my daughter's
and
birthday.
the 17th of August
Maybe she can come down.
and the 27th of August.
So none of these are on public holidays now.
Well, Memorial Day
Memorial Day
weekend.
weekend, we did that
We can't
last
the whole
year.
weekend.
That's what we used to
Oh,
do.
that's
We
May.
kick off the morning, weekend at the park.
But is it so the 27th, 28th is the Memorial Weekend? Oh, and the 29th. Oh, I see.
29th is the
Yes,
actual
I see.
Memorial Day.
Now, it seems to me like the mayor did some sort of Memorial Day.
Mhm, on Monday.
celebration. Was that on Monday?
It was on Monday,
Okay.
and that event
So-
is in the works to happen again.
Again,
But that's Monday, so
So
That
maybe,
kind of one on 13th Street.
yeah,
yeah,
so I'm not sure exactly what it's gonna entail this year.
Today, about.
Yep. So,
okay.
okay, so do those dates look good with everyone? We did,
and we've adjusted the times to start at 6 o'clock on both of
Both
them,
of them,
right?
Yes.
Instead of,
Because one
We
year,
started at 2 to
Sunday,
The Sunday one, we're not.
Sundays,
we
we're
used to
gonna
do
see
Sundays.
how they are.
2 to 4 was good on Sunday.
Yeah,
We didn't get much of a turnout.
oh, yeah,
So-
we're doing both days at the same time then.
6 p.m.
yeah,
Six to
that's what we
6 to
did
8.
last
Yeah.
year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, because what they were saying, that 2 to 4 we doing, it was still pretty hot down
it's
there.
too hot.
That's true.
Yeah.
So,
And did I understand you correctly saying that we do have a budget for this year, but we won't be able to access those funds until after July?
No, I was just saying that if there were something, so last year we had to completely stay within, this is how much we're getting,
Right.
this is how much we're expending. There is a possibility, like, we'll be bringing the funds in, but because there's a budget for it, we just need to be more mindful if we're wanting to do something aside from this money is set aside to pay the bands for the $200 that we've said we pay the bands. If there's something else, like you talked about,
Sandwich board.
a lot of you talked
Yeah.
about it
Mhm.
at multiple meetings, having a sandwich board. That we would want to make sure that we've identified that we're budgeting for that essentially.
Okay.
So
So if we wanted to buy not a big ticket, a huge ticket, but a larger priced item
we would,
before we start in May, what would that process look like? Like if we wanted to have a sandwich board for the 18th performance?
we can look at it and
Okay.
see like.
There's no red
what's
tape.
in there.
Okay.
It's just that we're cycling in, so. Like this is the,
I'm trying to understand. I'm sorry.
so we budgeted, I don't know the dollar amount for sure, but we budgeted enough to cover the bands, I think.
Right.
And maybe like $100 extra for this fiscal year that we're currently in.
Mhm.
So that's all we have. And it may have been that we just budgeted for the bands. So that's all we have to spend essentially.
Until July,
before July 1st.
before July.
Now
So
we're,
we can't get Taylor Swift, correct?
no, we're not going to get, maybe after July 1st. You'll have to ask the budget committee.
I think she has some open dates in August.
There's some ticketing issues with her though, so I'm just gonna leave that out there.
There's
on
no
that
pre-sold
page,
tickets.
The banners are already printed. We don't have to
Mhm.
make any adjustments or pay for
No.
anything on that then.
Yeah, yeah, as long as we're not changing our
Mhm.
primary
Dates.
dates and times and all that, those should last, as long as our sponsor still wants to sponsor. I don't
Mhm.
see them not wanting to this year, so I
The old,
think, I think
the
we're
old
okay.
4x8s are gone.
They're gone.
Over.
They've gone by the wayside.
That's the works that they needed them out of their way in their shops.
Along with the CDs.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
and the 18th is going to be the high school and the middle school. That's already set. Right. That's the Thursday,
yes.
the first Thursday.
May 18th.
High school and middle school or just high school?
I think your mom said that.
Middle
They should.
Middle school.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good,
so
thank you.
arts and crafts booths. This
Oh,
wasn't a terribly big animal last year, but it was more than I wanted it to be. Mostly because I kept getting people saying that they want to grow it into this huge, like, we want to go out and start advertising, getting more people to come. We want to turn this into, and your concerts would be big because you'd have more people coming in to go to these things, but my understanding when I came in is that you have talked before about trying to keep this a small Philomath music event, that's the primary function of it, and that we're not going into doing all this. It was
It's
fine.
not a street fair.
Right, a couple
Or a
people
market.
showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we had the freeze dried candy that came, that was the
Oh,
only
that's nice.
food, and I told them it was fine because they weren't competing with what the Lions Club was selling.
Mhm.
But, we can carry on with what we've been doing, internally as staff. We might talk about making a different process for it, but I just wanted to know your thoughts on it because you have discussed it every year.
The library will be there.
Yeah, I'll reach out to the library and see if they can come. I know last year they had to cancel one.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they were at each one of them.
I think so.
No, they came to two. They were scheduled for two events. They came to
Oh, only
one.
two. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So how many vendors as such? What's the limit, do you think?
Well, technically, there's not a rule that says you can't come set up a table in the park. So there's that.
Mhm.
We kind of
Um,
hold it, the Lions Club does
The food.
hamburgers.
Yes. Yes, they provide food
You know,
essentially,
and
meal.
Janelle and Brian does the Sunday with
Pizza.
the pizza
Mhm.
cooked in the
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the pizza oven thing. Yeah.
pizza oven.
And I think they said they were interested in that. We'll have to talk to them about that, but I think they did say they were interested in trying to do that again
Okay, well, that's
this
good.
year.
Did they do it last year?
They did, they just didn't have the oven until the end of the year, so or the end of the
Yeah.
concert series.
Yeah, it's still.
So Lions Club was doing one day,
Thursday.
Thursday.
the third day, do the Thursday one.
Mhm.
Well, I know we can't make it a rule that people don't set up, but if we had like designated, there's 3 booth spots at every event.
Mhm.
And you can't do them back to back or something like that. So we have a variety and we're trying to limit. And if someone sets up a table, we can't stop them, but we could publicize it or put it out that the city has these 3 spots for vendors and you can sign up for those spots.
Maybe, I mean, personally, if I were a vendor, it's, if you start having 3 different options to spend money, I don't think that any of them are gonna come out. That's just my
too
personal
much.
feeling. I think when there was one.
Yeah.
That there was some interest and there were some people and they would purchase some things, but I think if you get more than that, I mean, the vendors that have reached out, their whole thing was, if you bring more vendors, you're going to have more people at the concert.
Mhm.
But I just don't think that that's what the primary goal of
Yeah,
the
they
concert series
The
has
music
been.
is more than anything else.
Right,
Yeah.
so, I think it's kind of an animal, like if you
Let it go.
can
Yeah.
let this go and it could get to be where it's not the same type of event that you've been
Yeah.
trying to have,
It'd be more like
So-
a street fair.
I say that we just go with what we've been doing, which has been pretty much just, I'm, just kind of, yep, there's an event and.
Yeah.
If you want to set up, you
I
can.
think-
Yeah, but that we, if someone asked me about having a food event there set up close to that, I would say, if it was conflicting with Lions, I would say,
Mhm.
yeah, we don't want you to come set up next to the Lions.
Mhm.
Well, because if you get too many, nobody makes it.
Well, that's kind of the thing. I just don't think that there are enough people there yet. This is not, it's
Yeah.
not like 500 people or this is not a Corvallis concert series where there's more than enough people there to support multiple food vendors and multiple other vendors. And so to me, this is something that maybe in the future, if this grows and grows and grows and you have a bigger need for it, but we are experiencing growth, but I think that where we were at seemed good. And I think it still has room to grow. Like, I think one vendor that might show up still has capacity to be just the one vendor that could maybe make a little bit more money if more
Mhm.
people show up. So that would be my only thing, is not to discourage it. It's just, I I would feel bad for people if they're hauling a bunch of, it's their own deal, but to haul a bunch of.
No, I got feedback last year about that too,
Yeah.
about vendors that bring all their stuff and they bring all, like, they set it up, they're there
Right.
for the 2+ hours and then they
Right.
don't sell
I
anything, or
know.
they just sell a little bit, so I get that.
Yeah, so I think like right now, it just doesn't feel like an event that's supporting vendors, and that's not
Mhm.
anything to do with what we want to do or not. It's
Mhm.
just not that the people that go there seem very primarily interested in
In the
just
music.
relaxing
Sure.
and listening to music, and that's
Right.
kind of why they're there. So, okay, well, we'll just keep that as just status quo then, and kind
So
of,
I'm thinking if somebody comes along and wants to set up something, fine. And maybe the following week, when, or not week, I mean month, when we discuss, when we have a meeting, we can talk about, do we want another vendor to come, or was that successful, or should we not bother, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, as the summer goes on, we could see how that sort of thing works out, but I agree, I mean, this is a music event. And yes, there's food there, but that's all that needs to be there. really.
Okay, and like I said, internally, I think as staff, we have it on our list to have a conversation about the vendors
Mhm.
coming, like if that we're intentionally saying, sure, you can come to this, we need to have our own process and probably insurance requirements and things like that. So
Mhm.
we'll talk about that
Mhm.
internally as well.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good. Sounds like a plan. And then my last thing was, did anyone have anything else that they can remember came up last year that you wanted to talk about? Pros, cons, things you would like to suggest?
Well, we had the discussions about introducing the bands at 6
Mhm.
o'clock, having somebody do that.
Mhm.
But I think it's more important to, at the intermission, to get up there and do some talking about where the money's going, why these people are walking around with buckets.
Mhm.
And if we wanted to, introduce, Dale as chair of the committee or whatever. But that's a better time, because it seems like at 6 o'clock,
Not everybody's
people
there.
aren't there yet.
Mhm.
And it also gives that opportunity to then see what these people are doing as far as collecting money. So that would be my only suggestion, and I missed that meeting that we were doing suggestions, so. I
Yeah,
don't know
that's
if
a
you
good
may have
idea.
already talked about that.
That's a good idea.
What do you think, Dale?
I have no problem with that.
It was a little bit difficult. Oh, the camera just did something very strange, but it's back. There were a few times that it was difficult for me to get access to the microphone from the band.
Yeah,
Oh,
So,
that's
oh,
yeah,
the problem.
it-
during the program, you mean, during the time they were playing, or?
yeah, most of the bands were really great and we're like, sure, absolutely, you can
Mhm.
use it, but there were a couple that were very standoffish about it.
Oh,
So we'll do a little bit of thinking between now and
Well,
then
we
on
can
that.
get the one from the park.
Yeah, and it might be that we just
Get your megaphone
have that instead of that, but again, that is another thing to have to
to
do
set
every
up and
time.
coordinate.
But I could do a better job too, just checking with people, like that could just
Okay.
be something that when I'm sending them the email,
Mhm.
it says,
yeah.
here's what to expect, that's one of the things, here's what to expect.
Mhm.
We will have,
Show your-
volunteer
yeah.
or city staff, taking a couple minutes to
Mhm.
do announcements, and then they know what to expect too.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Some of them wanted to just start playing, so it threw them off that we wanted to
Oh.
announce them because they have their own thing, right? I show up, here's
Performers.
what I do and my gig, I start playing and then we take a break and we talk a little bit. So that might just be a little more coordinating, and that might function better with what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
maybe that's the way to do it, is say,
Yeah.
okay, you guys introduce yourself at 6 o'clock,
Sure.
but we want the mic at 7.
Yeah, so it might be get into the music, do the music.
Like that.
and We
Yeah.
would like to have a break at whatever about this time. That also would help. Maybe getting people, volunteers, having time to get there, because not everyone always gets there.
Yeah, we won't mention anything.
Don't donate to be mentioned,
Me too, I
but
know.
sometimes, it might be hard to get there, get parking.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get there, you can't find parking.
Because I was thinking too, it is an event, and we want to say, how come it's there? But like you say, it would be better to do it at, I always want to say halftime, at the
Intermission.
break, because then there's more people there at that time.
Mhm.
You know, people drift in and kind of, they're not all there at 6 o'clock.
Right.
You know,
Right, yeah,
and I think it's
definitely.
a good idea to say, oh, by the way, you know, this is why we're doing it, what's gonna happen to the money, etc. So that everybody knows.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. All right.
We plant more trees down there, Chris?
Mhm.
Last year we were talking about planting more trees along
Yeah.
the,
They
where the
have been-
roadway.
Some of them will be planted.
Have they? Okay,
Mhm.
I haven't been
They
over
have
to
been
there.
planting
I wasn't
some.
here for that. but-
It's not the park I go to. I go to Mary's River.
I haven't
Yep,
been down
we
there
do.
for a while.
Mm.
All covered over there.
We're on the park priorities.
We did that. And we just- So let's go to Paul Cochran.
We're here.
Oh, okay, sorry. So park priorities for strategy planning, and that we've just been
Yep.
doing.
Strategic planning. No, we have not been doing that. I'm sorry, Dale. I told you we had some stuff to do in this week. There's some work to do. Okay, I also included an agenda item summary. It's almost identical to the one I gave you last year. So we did this last year in January. The city council is going to meet this weekend and talk a little bit about the strategic plan draft. So what's listed on the agenda item summary is what's currently in that draft to go to council. There are a couple of things that are nearly complete or have been completed that could fall off, and you could replace those with something else. On the next sheet, this chart here, this is from the park master plan. So these are the priority projects
Oh, good.
that were identified in the park master plan. So if you look at the front, we can just go through the action items. The city park restroom replacement is substantially complete. They're just working on a little bit more to get that fully functioning and open. So I think you could remove that, suggest that that one be removed. Are you all good with suggesting that that's removed from the list?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have complete Cochran Park design and construction. So the pre-design phase, I should say preliminary, has been complete.
Mhm.
I'll just update you now, it's later in the agenda, but we just signed the agreement today to have the construction plans completed so that we can go out to bid for the project.
Okay.
So I think you're probably going to want, I don't know if you want to suggest that we leave that on there so that you can show that it's complete after it's complete.
But the design phase is complete.
The preliminary design phase, yes, I would say is complete. We know the design that we want. Now they're gonna make the actual plans for that design. So do you want to leave that one on there until it is
Yeah.
actually
Till they start-
complete?
Yeah.
Okay.
We get a
Okay.
company.
Apply for grant funding for skate park feasibility and design study. We have applied for that and received it. We've not completed the feasibility, but this action just says apply for it. So we will be taking the next step. So you may want to put something else about the skate park on there that's not that particular item because that has been completed. And then city park, replace a drinking fountain, add benches. The AARP grant is going to add benches, city park, and then the drinking fountain is part of the new restrooms. So
City
are
park.
you okay with removing that item?
When are the benches gonna be placed?
Hopefully soon. We're kind of waiting for weather related things and
Are they wooden
contractors so
or
we can
metal?
pour the concrete.
Wooden or metal?
They are the wood look recycled
plastic.
plastic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're reclaimed with metal.
Okay.
Ink, just recycled plastic, yeah. Okay, so if you look back at the list, the chart, you do have the top item on there is replace the skate park. So
Izzy will be happy.
you could ask for the action to be complete the feasibility and design study.
Mhm.
And I would say for a year, that cycle should be done by the end of the year, and then you would be able to say that's complete and suggest the next item.
Yeah.
Are you all good with that?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Larry, how about you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Right.
Should
And
the Cochran Memorial, should that
Mhm.
be put at the top of the list so that we can get that,
Yeah, I can move up.
get that done?
Oh, we can't change this. This is the park master plan.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, so it's already been done. So, the Cochran Memorial Park is, it is getting done. It is scheduled to be
Alright.
constructed. We are actively working on it.
Yeah, I think they're having a hearing.
Are these in priority
These,
sequence?
these are,
I guess that's what I'm.
Planning level costs. Oh, I see.
yeah, these top two, I think
Mhm.
were the priority and then these were remaining. I don't know that they're in order. I think they're
Okay.
just lumped
Just lumped
together.
together,
So
okay.
last year you just kind of picked a few off of there that you thought
Mhm.
were the most important. So it looks like you're removing two from this list of four and you're updating one and leaving one. So it looks like you have potential to maybe add two. I mean, you can add more than that, but we are trying to keep this something that we can keep chipping away at. So I would say start with two. That are on the list, you know, like Cochran Park is on that list, but it's already on the strategic plan and it's in the works.
Can I ask a question here?
Of
So
course, Chris,
it's for
Right,
Mary's
probably.
River Park. It says ADA accessible pathway connecting 9th Street with Mary's River,
Mhm.
to the river itself.
That's what I think that project,
So,
Potentially
so the
was.
city wants people to be able to, anyway, be able to get to the actual river.
yeah, is that?
I mean, I know
what
people
that
do at the
pathway was
moment,
entailed? Do you know the answer to that, Chris?
To the river or to the park?
Was it to the river or to connect the 9th Street to the other side of the park? Wasn't it that path?
I
To
think
make
it's
that path
connected
ADA?
sidewalk down.
Yeah, I think it's to make,
9th Street?
to make the path go
Down to the
through.
park area.
Oh,
It's
9th.
got the chip sealed road right now, but it's not
Yeah.
ideal for somebody that's in a wheelchair.
Right, but they can access the park from 11th Street. That's ADA accessible.
Yeah, so 9th Street would be, oh, yeah, so that's an unimproved road, it's gravel.
Yeah, it's down,
over
it
here,
is.
So it'd be getting sidewalks in or some type of pathway
Down that way, really?
all the way down 9th Street, yeah.
Hmm.
Would that be messed up
That's a
with the
big job.
construction that's gonna happen?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a good time to do it right now.
Right,
Wait till the treatment plant went in, which would be like late this year.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
maybe next summer. we could
You're gonna be
look at that,
dumping a bunch of concrete down there on the other end. To
but-
put
Yeah, I
in that.
mean, ideally, that's gonna come in at the same time that that street gets improved.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Hmm,
I don't think that that's on our
I didn't
transportation
know that.
capital
Oh, that's
improvement plan
interesting.
anytime soon.
Okay, thanks.
Did you have something additional?
I
Just
do
share.
have something additional. It's a big one, though. You come sit down up here, so I don't have to yell so loud.
Please come sit in our public.
Serious.
Always.
oh geez,
Are you making public comment or
Get,
staff
get
comment?
serious.
Public comment.
One of the things that's noted in the park master plan is continued support of the expansion of Skirvin Park, home of the Frolic and Rodeo. Daryl Hinchberger, Frolic and Rodeo board president's here tonight, and I'm here as a member of the board as well. There's an opportunity that we've got with the fire that took place on the rodeo grounds last year.
Mhm.
It's made the Frolic board jumpstart some of the plans that we've had on looking to replace and expand the seating capacity of the rodeo grounds. So we've been working with a consultant. We're kind of into the later phases of getting the final design engineered and presented back to us. The intent is for the board to start a capital campaign to start looking at raising funds to take care of that, but it's going to be in the, you know, the millions of dollars range, by $2 or $3 million range for a full rebuild of the entire stands, not just to meet current capacity, but also future capacity for years to come. And, you know, when you're rebuilding, doesn't make any sense to build to your current capacity. You got to look forward for the next 20, 30 years, what that's going to look like, the lifespan of whatever it is you're building, 30 years plus. So we've run the numbers and just roughly the current capacity of the stands before the fire, including the 2 temporary bleachers on the ends. The north and south end was about 2,200 people per night. The last several years, we've sold, Friday, Saturday night, we've sold 400 to 500 standing room only tickets, which means people that came, knew they wouldn't have a seat and still paid a ticket price to come in and just find someplace to go in the beer garden or do whatever. I would estimate at least that many more people didn't come to the rodeo because they didn't have a ticket and they didn't want to come and get a standing room only ticket. And so, we're already, if you use those rough numbers where we're selling out at, it's like 2,250, add another 400 to 500 onto that. So we're already in that 28 to 3,000 range that is today based on our current population of Philomath and Benton County. So we've extrapolated that out and looked at what does that look like as the Philomath population increases and Benton County population increases over the next 20 years. And so our target for seating capacity is in the 5,000 range. And that's what we're looking at, which is essentially a bowl almost all the way around, or we've gone from bowl to more like a horseshoe because it's an arena, right? So it'd be the horseshoe all the way around with different seating configurations, different price levels, so we can keep some more affordable seats, have some higher end seats. But all of that said, this would be private funding. This would be potentially paid, over time, a loan of some sort that we would pay back over time with ticket sales. There's also a grant opportunity with the state of Oregon that the Frolic and Rodeo as a nonprofit isn't eligible for, but the city would be eligible for. And since the city owns Skirvin Park, we own the property, the city would be able to apply for that grant in partnership with the Frolic and Rodeo, or in lieu of the Frolic and Rodeo in partnership there. So the ask is really just, would the park board be willing to consider a recommendation to the city council to apply for a Oregon State Parks and Rec grant in order to help with the rebuild or reconstruction of the arena, knowing that, again, it wouldn't be that the match that would be required would be provided by the Frolic. There'd be no real out of cost expense to the city. I would work with the Frolic board to put the application together, do the presentation, all of that. So really, the city's really not out anything other than the city we wouldn't want to submit 2 grant applications the same year, right? So if we're looking to go forward this year, the city, again, unless there's another project on the list that you'd be applying for that state grant for this year, there's really not going to be any competition. So if that's something that you want to do, my recommendation would be that you'd consider that, have the discussion about it, and go ahead and add that onto a list that would get in front of the city council as an additional project, because the funding would still come through the city, right? It's still going to need to be budgeted through the city. If we get the money, we'll spend the money. It'd just be that pass through.
So I have a question. So what is the Parks Board as such responsibility to the Skirvin Park? And you're saying that the Skirvin Park is the rodeo grounds and the surrounds, right?
Yeah, so Skirvin Park is all of the land that was donated from the Skirvins to the city.
Donated to, so is the Parks Board now responsible for making decisions about that park as well? I
So
didn't know that.
Yeah, so the park is leased to the Frolic and Rodeo. That lease agreement puts the maintenance and operations responsibility for the park on the Frolic and Rodeo. So the park board wouldn't be making decisions like moving this or adding things in there, whatever. So that's not the case, but the city, as the owner of the property, does have the ability to apply for these state grants and other grants in order to make improvements on the city-owned property, even though the property is leased out to another entity. So it's a partnership, obviously the city, I guess the question for the park board is, does the park board view improvements at Skirvin Park as a benefit to City of Philomath Parks and Recreation? The Frolic hosts the Frolic and Rodeo, but it also hosts equestrian events throughout the summer, dog shows, other events, the sheriff's and police
Chili
department,
cook-off.
chili cook-off. I mean, there's a number of events that take place, private weddings, anniversaries, corporate retreats. So all those things are happening at the rodeo grounds. the arena itself is the youth rodeo, you know, it's the frolic
Yeah.
rodeo, the youth rodeo, the pee-wee rodeo. We're looking at the high school or the middle school rodeo championship as well. So that facility is going to increase to get, the use of that's going to continue to increase. And with the new seating, new arena, everything else, again, it's just gonna add to the amount of use that takes place there every year.
So as I'm sorry, go ahead, Sam.
I see this time of year that people go in there a lot with horse traders. And do something in the grounds there. Is that, do they pay the public to go in there to do whatever they're doing, to exercise their horses or whatever they're doing?
Yeah, they're not doing right now. They go typically through about October. There's a Frolic Riders Club. I think we're charging like $25 for the month. And you can come in and use the arena. As for the year, $25 one-time fee. And you go up throughout the riding months, as long as there's not a reservation there, you can take your horse in and ride through it. So again, it's a great community asset. And I guess that's where the Frolic Board stands, is that we want to make this a part of the Willamette Parks system, albeit we're managing it, we're maintaining it for the benefit of the community. We still see there's a lot of opportunity for partnership with the city, where again, it's not city staff, it's not city public works employees maintaining it, it's all Frolic Rodeo volunteers. But if there's these grants that are available, the city can apply for it. It seems like a great opportunity.
Did we have plans to apply for this grant for something else?
The only thing, I'll put the city hat on a little bit, the only thing on the list that I really look at would be potentially the skate park is like that next biggest thing.
Right.
We're doing the feasibility, so we applied for, that's where we got the funding, was the state, right?
Yeah.
So we got the funding from the state to do the feasibility study,
Mhm.
and I believe that's gonna take us, a year or so to
It's gonna
do,
take a
so.
little while just because of staffing, so we do have up to 2 years to get that completed and submit all of our invoices to the state. We hope that it won't take that long, but we do with the building Cochran Park, our administrative staffing for parks, building parks right now is kind of tapped out and invested in that project. So we are getting to that part, but it's definitely steps. And we do know that in addition, we're going to have to fundraise for that skate park that, the way that people are wanting it, it's going to need some fundraising, which is going to take some time too, because what we don't want to do is ask for a grant when we don't have enough funds to pull together for that project. So there's going to be a little bit of fundraising phase, I think, once we get this planning done and we get an idea of what the concept of the park is going to look like, based off the community needs, then we need to be able to use some of those drawings to do a little fundraising before we apply for a construction grant.
It's not a resource that I think the city would want to apply, again, multiple projects at the same time, although some cities do that. They'll submit multiple projects and see if any one of them can be successful. But it would be unlikely that the state would pick multiple projects in the same city.
That's what I'm thinking too,
right?
yeah.
The city was able to get Flossie Overman Park. We got a grant for that park, that one, and that's been 5 years ago. It's been a little while. So we've not even applied for grants the last several years. We haven't had a big project to apply for.
So wait, sorry, I'm just trying to clarify. What you're saying is that we were going to apply for this grant that you're speaking of for the skate park, but instead we'd be using it for Skirvin Park. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'd say the only other project on the list I would see would be the skate park, but it sounds like we're still a year or two or more away from doing that. So what I would ask for from the Frolic, which the city consider applying for that grant this year. And then if it's another year or two before we go kind of back to that same, or, back to the state to ask for additional money for
the skate park.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just saying we couldn't apply for that at the same
this year,
time.
but we're not.
And their application window, I believe, it ends in April or March. It's pretty early in the year, so.
And we don't have the funding to
That's not
match
happening
anyway.
this year.
So it
and
wouldn't
because-
happen anyway.
Because we're gonna be working on getting that planning and feasibility toward the end of this year. I don't think we'd quite be ready to apply for a construction grant in that small window at the beginning of next year.
Gotcha.
But the following year, maybe, but by then, this would have been done completely.
If we get the grant.
If we got the grant, it would have been done completed.
Gotcha.
If we didn't get the grant for that, we'd apply for the skate park either way, so.
And there's no stipulations, like you apply 1 year, you have to wait a certain period of time or anything with
There's
this?
no stipulation. Again, they're not gonna, they're pretty competitive.
Sure,
We applied for Floss Hilderman, I think 2 or 3 years before we got it. I think there was an initial
years, I think
attempt and then we
yeah.
really applied twice.
Yeah.
So
okay,
they're pretty competitive. You've got to have a very good grant going into it. You've got to check all the right boxes as far as what are the state priorities right now. So. No, but to specifically answer your question, there's nothing that says you couldn't apply again, multiple projects the same year,
Mhm.
different projects every year.
Mhm.
I can tell you right now, the larger cities, they're putting a project every year.
Mhm.
And they're just gonna, if they get the money, great, they
Right.
move forward. If they don't, they just put
Right.
it forward another year. Tweak their application a little bit, which is what we did. We improved our application from one year to the next based on the feedback that we got.
Mm.
And so we did, so again, the Frolic and Rodeo is ready to go now, right? They've got the plans. I mean, we're a
That's
few
what I
weeks
was-
away from having the plans and the renderings and be able to do that. We have money in reserves that we would use for the match.
Mhm.
And we're at a point where we'd like to apply for that grant this year, or with the partnership with the city to
Mhm.
apply for that grant this year. In the case that we're successful, terrific, we can start making plans and do some additional funding to make that happen. But that first lump sum is already there, which a lot of funders, especially private donors, will wait and see. Let's see if there's some excitement, see if they can get some money going. If once you get that first pot of money, that spurs more activity. And so we really hope that would work. Worst case, if we don't get awarded this year, we're not, another 2 or 3 multiple years out before we can start going on it. We can tweak our application and then look to apply again next year with a stronger application. So all things go well, we get funded this year. Worst case scenario gets funded next year. And we can again not lose a lot of time on making improvements to the grandstands that need to be replaced.
Will there be some plans to try and get some money in other ways for the rodeo grounds?
Yeah, so the state grant would be primary source. We're gonna be doing a capital campaign, so we'll be reaching out to all of our current sponsors. And then
Okay.
we'll be doing additional outreach to the public, other entities, looking to the county, that sort of it. Literally right now, we're waiting for all of the renderings and everything to come back, so we have something to show, because you have to have the pretty pictures
Yeah,
to get the money. That's where we're at in the process, just waiting for that to come in, and then we'll be in funding mode at that point.
so the planning committee of the rodeo club, whatever it is, are your plans ready to go out for a bid right now? We're not quite.
They'll be ready within a couple of weeks. They'll be ready in time to apply for the.
Before the
I
due
think
date.
it closes April 1st or April, or maybe it needs to be in, so we'll have time.
the skate park's not anywhere close to being.
No, and that's kind of the
Okay.
point, yeah. Yeah, and we actually have to, I do believe that we have to close out the grant that we have for the skate park
Oh.
before you can't apply for 2 of them for the same
That makes
project
sense.
at once.
Yeah.
No
So we have
overlap.
to close that out,
Oh, and
be
start all over
complete with
again.
it. Yeah, and like I said, my hope is that by summer, I'll be ready to get going on getting the planning aspect going. Just currently, I'm trying to get the Cochran Park moved to-
Finished.
moved to Public Works so they
Right.
can
Yeah.
start building it. So, we've got a few other projects on our plate, but, so it is, the planning process is going and we're doing that. So I don't want to make it sound like that's stalled. It's not. But there definitely are some additional steps, and because we don't know exactly where the skate park will be. We have thoughts on where it could be, but there's just a little bit more on the table,
Processing,
right?
right.
Like, do we want it over here? Is it going to be where it is? Is that feasible still with, can we build it there? So I just think that there's a little bit more work to be done there for feasibility purposes. I think we know generally what the community wants, but we want to make sure that we ask again in case there's something else. But it's more about that feasibility and getting a design. So
do we have somebody working on a design for the skate park? or-
No, we have a grant and we'll put out a request for proposals. I have a couple companies already that have expressed interest in
Okay,
submitting a proposal for it.
There was talk about relocating it.
There's potential. I mean, it just kind of depends on what exactly you want and will that, first of all, will it fit there? Is that the place for it? So we have talked about looking at the potential available locations and just making sure.
And that's
that-
what you're saying you'll work on, or you're planning on working on
That's-
this summer.
Yes, yes. So I'm hoping, in the next several months that I'm gonna be able to get the request for proposals out. Then we give a little time to get in and then we get going on that part of it, but we're not, that. To get to where you could apply for it, and I've learned this with the War Memorial, which is it's a different grant through Oregon State Parks. Is you need to be ready to build
Sure.
it, because we've run into that with it, right? We applied and then it's like, but we were not anywhere near having the plans for the memorial, the plans for the concrete around it.
Okay.
So there's been a delay and we're, gonna definitely have to ask for a little bit of an extension while we get it in there. So we just want to make sure that with the skate park, we have everything completely ready to go as much as we can when we apply for that construction grant, because it's going to take time to get that built out. We want to make sure that we're not having to ask for extensions right when we get the grant. That's not good. So
but
So anyway.
but you're saying, Chris, that the plans for the rodeo, the upgrade of the rodeo arena essentially
They're ready.
will
They're
be
ready to go.
ready
Yeah.
in quicker than these plans would be.
Within the next couple of weeks, we'll have them. Yeah.
they've been working on their
Mhm.
plans. We haven't gotten to we're not there yet.
Yeah, we started working just
Right after the fire.
the rodeo, which is that in July, and then we've been working on plans. We've got the engineer out of Colorado that's been getting up, and it's just been doing revisions. And
Sure.
we hit that point where final revisions are submitted, so now it's just up to the engineer to finish those up, get the renderings done. And like I
Okay.
said, we'll have plans in place, ready to go, and it'll just be a matter of getting the funding, will be the only thing we're waiting for.
And as far as the skate park goes, so who will be deciding where it is built? The people who are designing it?
So part of what we're going to ask them to look at is the feasibility of several different locations. We're not gonna just say where in the city. We're gonna have some
Yeah,
kind of specific. We gotta keep the costs down.
right.
And
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
that should.
but there are a few locations that have been talked about in the past, so they'll just look at those and see if it's feasible. Like, could you build this
Yeah.
type of structure there? Does it look like it meets some of, the park master plan? Some of it was, if you were going to build another skate park, maybe look at more visibility. So there's several things that are kind of on the table to look at and see what looks like the most feasible location. Cost, I mean, that's all gonna kind of factor into that, so,
Will the current skate park stay?
no,
It's
not
not essentially not usable.
it's just not
Not
very
readable. Yeah.
useful.
That's
Yeah.
the whole reason for
Yeah.
doing that. So in other words, it sounds like the rodeo plans are pretty much just about ready to go. They just need money. Yeah. Mhm.
Ready to apply for the grant.
No, it is not.
Yeah.
The only thing I would think is there might be a conflict if you don't get it this year. And then you reapply next year.
Mhm.
That would be where there could become a
That's true.
conflict,
There
yeah.
could be a
So,
conflict with
So the
skate.
skateboard park
Right.
will be
um,
out 1 year.
Right, so is that the only place you apply is through the state park? Or,
That's the biggest pot of money
okay,
that's available. Yeah.
It might make some people a little upset. But hopefully the rodeo grounds will get their grant.
So Chelsea,
yes.
if they didn't get the grant this year, the
Mhm.
rodeo, and they didn't get it next year, isn't it that following year that we would be applying? Or is it
Most
next year?
likely, I mean, there's a possibility it could be next year, but I'm just gonna say it's not likely, just
So
say.
a conflict could come in if the rodeo doesn't get it
It
this
could-
year,
that
doesn't
could be
get
a
it next year,
conflict.
and then the third
And the
year.
council is, if you did make a recommendation to, look for. Apply for some grant funding for the grandstands for the Skirvin Park. The council then, if they say, yes, we're good, we want to do that. It's going to be up to the council then on if we're going years out and they keep applying.
Right.
They're going to have to make a decision at that point on whether or not when the skate park is ready to, when we're ready to do that, the council is going to have to make a decision on what they want to do on that.
And hopefully by then we've, again. best
Hopefully
case
by then,
scenario,
yeah,
we Get approval.
Yes.
And we're 2
Right.
years or maybe 3 years removed and we're going back to ask for money for the skate park. But I recognize that, but really, we're just asking for the 1 year right now. Really just asking to put it on the capital improvement plan on the CIP as a priority for the park board. So the city can make it a priority. And see if we can apply and get that money coming into the community this year.
And if you did choose to put it on here, what you could do is to say, apply for grant funds in 2020, like you could put the year on it, like if that, if that made you feel more like you're being more specific and saying that your intentions are.
Yeah.
We're saying this, that's what you're recommending, and you're not recommending to do it forever, and that can be addressed later if it's
Mhm.
still, on the table.
Mhm.
We could come back and have this discussion again next January if we need to. That if that would make you more comfortable to say, apply for grant funds
I think that feels more fair.
in
that
2023.
You guys are ready, do it this year. If you don't get it this year, then we'll look at next year and see if where we're at with the skate park, if that's even a possibility. But if it's not even a possibility, then why not try and get,
Yeah, we don't want to be a spot where we're competing with the skate park by any means. And
Right.
we're, might have some benefit of the skate park and maybe down the roadie grounds, maybe one places on the feasibility study that you look at, so maybe a dual thing. So, no, I think everything's on the table. We're just looking for this year. Again, I think we're ready. The timing's good, and I don't see us directly competing with the skate
Right.
park.
Yeah.
Do you call it the grandstands? Is that what you call it? Just for what I'm putting in here,
Whatever.
the. What do you call it?
Daryl?
Arena,
The arena grandstands.
Arena grandstand?
I mean, are you upgrading the arena also?
No, just
No, just the grandstand.
Okay, so the way I have it,
Really remains.
I'm gonna ask for someone to make a motion on how I read this so that we can. go through it. We can recommendation.
Before we move anything here, so it is designated as a park on there. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't realize the city actually owns it now.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't either. I know there was a lot of moving around there, but, so the only thing is that,
She's playing back.
you're asking us to make a decision tonight, is that correct? Can we wait till next month or not? That, I'm just looking at timeline, because you're talking about strategic planning priorities. Is it this weekend?
Well, this weekend, we're talking through the strategic plan, but we're not, really what we're looking at is the capital improvement plan. The Public Works Committee is going to be looking at strategic plan, looking at master plans, and it's really the capital improvement plan that the Public Works Committee looks at, and that's going to be at the March meeting. So there's some time. I mean, I think what Chelsea was asking tonight was to look at what's currently listed in the capital improvement plan and in the strategic plan
Mhm.
and see what needs to move forward or what needs to change there. I believe there's is an intersection that has the language about supporting.
There is something in there supporting improvements at Suburban Park that was already in the strategic.
It's in
plan.
the current.
I think it's in a different section is why it's not
Mhm.
on here. So I guess that under that, we could put this as an action. So under the support
Mhm.
efforts at Suburban Park, you could put it as an action. If you wanted to recommend that.
It'd be something like partner with the Frolic and Rodeo and applying for a
Yeah.
2023 state parks and rec grant.
Yeah.
And it would just be, again, it's a recommendation to the council, and it would, at least coming from the park board, it shows that at least this group has said this is a priority and we see benefit to the community, and then the council gets to have a similar conversation.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
does someone want to make a motion to add that to the strategic plan recommendations?
Don't be afraid.
I'll make a motion. I just don't know what to say.
That's you're making a motion to say what I just said.
Okay,
To add
what
the,
Chelsea said.
to add this item to the strategic plan recommendations for the city council.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
And the only reason I'm nervous about it is that we haven't heard about this before.
Right, it's
And
the first time it's come up.
I don't know that it's always a good idea to just have it presented and then vote on it. Now, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It wasn't on the agenda. So that would be my only concern.
Well, I mean, this is an agenda item, so discussing, it does not have to be just what's on this list. This is recommendations that we were making, like, for instance. This is not part of the master plan. This coordinate efforts related to music in the park is in the strategic plan draft, but these are just recommendations that you're making. You could make up a whole new list of totally different projects and recommend them. Then the council would probably say, what about, you know, what's in your master plan? But you can make other recommendations. That's how things like music in the park got on here, was that we had a meeting and the committee or the board recommended something additional. So I don't think it's outside the scope. Like I said, that is already, it is already in as an action item, or as an item, an objective. I think this would just be adding an action item to that objective.
What concerns you, Larry?
Just that, I always need more time to think.
Yeah.
That's about it, you know, and maybe there are other sides to this story. That's my only concern. On the other hand, this is an advisory board and the city council is the one that makes the final decision.
Correct.
So,
And that's why we vote, vote how it makes,
Yeah, one of the
we'll
things
note
that, I mean, we have a priority list,
Mhm.
which the rodeo grounds is not on currently.
Sure. The thing about the rodeo situation is that things do come up, and things will come up. And even with this park list that you have here, there's going to be things that come up, or opportunities. We may get some kind of an opportunity for a grant that you have to move something up the list. So that does happen. I mean, this is not set in
I
stone.
understand that was an incident that was not planned.
It was an incident, it wasn't planned. So I think that's what makes it a little bit different.
Yeah.
And
Your capital project list in the park master plan is really specific to things that the city's going to pay for, the city's going to make improvements for. Because that's from that, the city determines what's the cost of all these improvements, how much money do we need to collect and charge for park SDCs and all these other things. So it's sometimes referred to like a constrained list, right? So this is the project list of things that the city's going to need to raise money to pay for. All of the improvements at Skirvin Park. Again, they're referenced within the master plan document. Read through, there's several references to supporting improvements, supporting the Frolic and Rodeo. The thought when we talked to the consultant, if I remember right, and talking through that was a recognition that most of the improvements taking place in Skirvin Park were going to be paid for by the city. They were going to be paid for by the Frolic and Rodeo or other private entities, or paid for with grants, right? But again, this is to me a great opportunity for the Frolic and the city to partner to get the grants, where again, it's not going to cost the city any money. It's just the city would facilitate applying for that grant because they're eligible to apply for it. And at the end of the day, the Frolic goes away, the city's going to be left with a brand new arena with, brand new stands and everything else. So the asset stays with the city.
I guess for myself, I'm speaking for myself, I didn't realize that the Parks Board was making recommendations for the rodeo grounds. I didn't recognize until you were talking about it, that the Parks Board, that it was actually part of the parks in the city. I didn't realize it was.
yeah, and just so you know, there are actually improvements listed for Skirvin Park in the master plan. This is
Just not priority.
the shorter
Yeah,
list that
right.
you came up with out of those, but there,
Okay,
just so you know, it was identified to do
Okay.
some improvements to the rodeo grounds, not these improvements. We didn't know this was
before the
coming.
fire, yeah.
But it is in
Okay,
there, so.
that I didn't know too.
have you had a discussion with the city council about it yet or not?
No, that is to bring it here first, again, have the conversation here, see if there was support for it, and then elevate it to the city council. If the park board felt it was appropriate, again, if everything's about priorities, and I understand that. I mean, if we were doing the skate park and we'd done the feasibility study a couple of years ago, when we were ready to go, I didn't even ask because we won't want to compete. I see there's an opportunity for us to be successful getting the grant application to help Skirvin Park out today. And then still be eligible to, apply for additional grant funding in the future for future projects like a skate park. That's what we're gonna do. It's just, it feels like the skate park project is far enough away. I don't see it really hurting us.
So I would just say to add part of, the reason why the Skirvin Park topic is not on your list is that it's listed under develop and expand Philomath tourism. So we're trying to bring more people to Philomath, but it is still as an objective, support efforts to improve Skirvin Park and with the Philomath Frolic and Rodeo. Chris and I have been talking about how some of these things it's difficult to know where to put them in the strategic plan because they touch several different areas. So it is, that this item is asking the city to support the efforts. Obviously, it is also a park. That's why it's in the master plan. It has some items. So either way you go, I do want you to know that it is identified in both of those plans, just so you have that information that it's in there. So
We had the drawings and the renderings that have those with us tonight. Again, we're just at this point where we bring it tonight, but really, if there's approval here at this level, then the next step's going to be to go to the city council. And Chelsea will say, here's the list of recommendations for the strategic plan update. What's this about the Frolic and Rodeo and this grant? And then again, we'll present more and we'll have to convince the city council that that's a good idea to support those efforts as well.
and ultimately they're making the decision. So
Well, and I appreciate having this discussion tonight, because I didn't think the rodeo grounds was part of the park,
Yeah, it's the first time I've.
and yet it is on our map.
We're looking at a rezone where it's currently zoned residential, so it doesn't show up like bright green like some of the other park spaces does.
Yeah,
But eventually, when we update the map, that'll be one of the things we do is look at our new parks, this one and Cochran Park as well is still just identified as residential. So we'll identify those, we'll tint them green and identify them as public property and park space.
So can you tell me again, was the park donated to the city or did the city
Yes.
buy it?
Paul and Lola Skirvin donated it to the city with the understanding that the city would do a long-term lease agreement with the Frolic and Rodeo for future use.
Okay, so there's not going to be any residences there now?
No, it's city owned and dedicated as parkland.
Okay.
In fact, I think there's a provision in the conveyance in the deed that says if the city wants to change use of the property from that, it has to go out for a vote of the people. And there's some percentage that it has to pass in order to convert that. So there were safeguards put in place to both protect the city because they wanted that to stay a community asset, right? They didn't want to give it to the Frolic and Rodeo and say 10 years later, the Frolic and Rodeo disbands and then they sell the property off as an asset and do whatever with the money. The intent was the Skirvins wanted that to be a community asset
Okay,
for, forever. At the same time, they wanted to protect the Frolic and Rodeo, make sure the Frolic and Rodeo had a home for the Frolic and Rodeo every year. And so that long-term lease agreement was required as well. And so, again, it's really the best of both worlds, right? I mean, the city doesn't have to pay anything to put on the Frolic and Rodeo. The Frolic and Rodeo organization does that. They manage, they do the reservations, all that. But yet it's city-owned property. And so the city and Frolic can partner on opportunities like this to get some grant funding and to help with some of these larger improvements that are needed. And then the community wins because they have access to some rodeo grounds, which they otherwise want to have.
so is the city responsible for all the construction in that, in the actual rodeo ground area? Any booths or anything that are actually currently there, like the little dance place and all of those things?
That's all in the lease agreement that the Frolic has to maintain all of that.
Okay,
So
How many years is that lease?
it's a 99-year lease and we're in year 2.
Oh, so they renew it? Wait, oh, we're on year 2, I
We're on
see.
year 2.
Okay, we're not on the second
We
99.
won't be.
No, that would be the 1800s.
now nobody in this. The Yellowstone still be around. Does that property include the 2 residences there or not?
No,
Okay,
no, it's essentially where Cedar Street would continue through,
okay,
but doesn't, it's about that line down. So there's where the horse sculpture is,
yeah,
that's kind of that imaginary upper northeast corner.
okay.
And that would come about straight over from there.
so now that you mentioned that, is that still a separate entity from the rodeo grounds? I mean, at the moment, it's a little park on its own, as far as I understand.
That's also
But
So
it's also the
owned by the
Skirvin Park.
city, but it's maintained now by. Well, Friends of Skirvin Park, but they've just sent a letter to the city asking the city to take over maintenance of it. They're kind of done doing it, and so it'll be. City, but more than likely it'll be the Frolic Rodeo that's gonna maintain that as well, as part of our grounds.
So there's something here about planting trees there or something.
All right, so what's the motion again? Sorry.
The motion was to add partnering with the Frolic and Rodeo to apply for an OPRD grant in 2023 to improve the arena grandstands at Skirvin Park.
And the improvement is needed because of the damage that was done.
Mhm.
Presumably. I mean, if they're gonna repair them, they were repaired, but in order to make them nice, might as well make them bigger. Is that's what you're saying essentially, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, what burned is gone. We had temporary bleachers installed just for the
Mm,
weekend, but. We lost a third of our seating in
Yeah.
the grandstands area that's not there still, so.
Oh, yeah.
If the question was, do you just rebuild what was there? We gotta get it engineered, you gotta get everything in there and comfortable as sin, so it was really just, and then you do that, and again, you're still short seating, right? We're short every year, and so.
Might as well
The
just
the
use that
concept was,
opportunity.
let's look at a rebuild and more capacity and more comfortable and, more ADA seating, easier access, better ramps, all those things. So bring it into the 21st century.
So do we have a motion to send this?
think they
further?
wrote
I made the motion, Yvonne seconded it, we just need to vote.
Okay, all those in favor, or any discussion? No.
I guess.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I guess.
Opposed? Okay,
I just have one question. So the old grandstands or the existing ones are wooden.
Yeah.
Are the new ones gonna be wooden?
No.
Okay.
this is gonna make the community proud.
I will be.
Harder to work.
happy to sit on
Once you see what's being developed, this would have been a no-brainer decision.
This is about steel, and then go all into the steel.
It's just the wood.
It's the new-
Yeah, what do you do with
For
the
me,
old
it's
wood?
the shallow.
What do you do with the old wood?
She's gonna try to get it to stay.
And like you're.
There's a lot of wood there.
Guys, can we?
Okay, let's call this back to order.
It's old seats from the museum or something. Have the old.
Come back to
seats in the
order here,
museum.
please.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Maybe.
If at times you need to learn more about this, I'd be glad to sit and tell you the history of how all this happened. If at any time you have comments or questions about all the relationship there with the city, I'd be glad to spend any time you need so I can sit down and explain all this stuff
Okay,
that you didn't know.
thank you.
Our assumption was that you knew
How was
that the second largest park is yours.
We do
Well,
know.
it's.
I just
believe
know that
story.
they didn't really read the master plan draft.
Let's
That
go back.
was in there.
You guys, the meeting isn't quite over.
All right,
So
so let's get back to, my recommendation is that you replace the two action items that you're removing
Oh.
off of the follow the parks master plan capital project list. So if you go back to your green chart here.
Yeah.
We replaced skate park, we've got that on there and we're working on that, and the Cochran Park, we've got that on there, we're working on that, that leaves the pedestrian scale lighting through invasive vegetation management. So things to keep in mind are things that you think we can realistically work on achieving in the next few years. In conjunction with the other projects that you have identified, so. The two that you have on there are the skate park and Cochran Park.
Mhm.
So those are pretty big projects. You might want to choose something that balances that out a little that you can really get crossed off the list.
well, the Flossie Overman can come off, can it?
That has not been done. This is adding shade trees
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
and trash and recycling cans.
Well, what is scale lighting?
Pedestrian scale lighting, so it's lighting that's down lower, helps pedestrians, when you see versus a light that's very, very tall, that's not intended.
you assume in the pathway through
Like the pathway through the.
Right.
Newton Creek or
Yes.
and
Hunsaker or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that particular, we have looked at, we're going to be replacing some of the streetlights on the project. We're not sure about the feasibility yet, but we have looked at the potential of using a few of those
Oh, yeah,
in the park. We don't know if it's feasible yet, but
that's a great idea. I'd
It
hate to
could-
see those.
it
things
could be
go
a
by the
possibility.
wayside. If it can be done, I would support that definitely.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Use the.
Trying to
the,
repurpose some of the downtown
Pardon?
streetlights.
The streetlights that we have. In a couple of blocks on Main Street, like between, what is it, 14th and
Mhm.
13th and 12th, whatever. They're gonna remove those and put new streetlights in the whole street because it's part of the improvement. What happens to those old ones? If we could reuse them, and I like them,
Sure.
use them in the park.
So it's a
That would
possibility.
be a great
We
idea.
just have to see if it's feasible and will work out and
That's right.
be cost effective.
That would be bad. You just
So Chelsea,
throw it
you-
away, you know.
You're asking for us to choose one other item that we think is achievable for next year?
Two.
So two more items.
And the skate park is not gonna be one of them.
It's already on.
It's already on there.
Skate park.
Oh, I
and
see.
the
Oh, you mean you're
section-
talking
yeah.
about the lower section?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the
see.
skate
Oh, yeah,
park
yeah.
and Cochran Memorial, those are the two,
Oh,
and then we
okay.
gotta find two
So-
more.
We did just talk about the ADA pathways for Mary's River and that we think we're not quite there yet.
Exactly, that's what I'm
So
thinking.
You might want to say like, those are not.
Yeah.
gonna be
I think
feasible.
that seating and trash recycling cans at Mary's River Park.
And if you knock off the two cheapest ones, it's like paying off your debt. You feel like
I
you're
mean, that's
getting
what
more
I'm
done
looking
early.
Um,
And then
Not
the
that I
the
know
Flossy
of.
Overman. Oh, no, of course.
And that leaves you with, play area and swings, ADA accessible surface and play area at Triangle Park, and then the shade trees at.
Oh,
the Overland Park.
I mean, I definitely think Triangle Park needs to be improved, but if we're looking at cost. and-
That might be more of a
Achievability.
project,
That's what
so
I'm
you
thinking.
might want to look at putting that on there when you get these other bigger cracks
Right.
kind of chipped away at.
Would it be better to choose a less expensive one and a more expensive one, or to?
Yeah, I mean, expense usually is just kind of noting how long and how much planning and
Mhm.
length of time it will take, and because you have two large projects, I mean, the largest projects are on there already.
Mary's River
Um,
Flossy.
so, you know, you're just thinking about things that you
Cause these are
think
so
could
big.
potentially get done, that you can see some movement on them, you know.
Well, certainly the seating and trash cans, wherever they're needed.
At Mary's River Park.
Yeah, and even at Flossy Overman Park.
Sorry, I was trying to get his attention. So what do we think? Rose has suggested the seating and trash can at Mary's River Park
Mhm.
That
at
sounds good.
one.
I'll also suggest the Flossy Overman Park improvement.
And
For
yeah,
the trees and the, okay.
right.
So do you want to make a motion to recommend those two projects?
I make a motion to choose putting in seating and trash recycling cans at Mary's River Park and shade trees, tree protection and trash and recycle cans at Flossy Overman Park.
Give a second for that.
I'll second it.
John.
Let's get stuff done. Yes.
Discussion, you want to discuss that, Dale? Any discussion on that?
Me too, really. I mean, it's pretty well spelled out.
Anyone else discussion?
No.
You want to call for a vote there, Dale?
Okay, so we'll call for a motion for these items that we are taking off or circling that were,
Yep. That we're adding those.
so. Anyone want to make a motion to,
Rose,
She did-
they already
they
made a
did.
motion. We're just voting.
anybody second?
You
Yeah,
wanted,
we got a second. We're just to the vote.
Wake up.
Wake up.
You're just in deep thought.
you caught up with us.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed?
Did you aye as well?
I did think so.
Okay, just checking. Okay. All right,
I
I
only
think,
have to vote if there's a tie.
I think I've updated on my other staff updates, so, just a quick recap, the Veterans Park is going with the designer who's gonna start on Monday to make the plans for construction bidding,
Mm.
so that's good.
How long will that take?
I think her schedule was gonna be 8 weeks.
8 weeks?
Yeah, so I cannot guarantee that. We do have to also work with the another 2 engineering firms for some of the additional plans, so. It's in progress. We're moving along as fast as we can.
And the one grant expires in December?
No, it expires here in May, but we'll be asking for an extension. I did already ask them about the possibility of that, and I think that they're open to it. They just want to know that you are actively doing this project, not just flaking out, basically. So I've been in communication with them. I've been submitting updates to them like we're supposed to, even though we don't have a lot of movement, but I did send them recently the drawings that you all looked at. So and that's it. In the skate park, and we talked about that.
So can I have, just say something quickly about the Cochran Park? We've been talking again at the Rotary Club about putting up a peace pole. And it is a design, a very simple design that we've kind of picked. So is there a place for that there?
You know,
Or not?
Lindy, I will ask, because I know you've all voted to do that already. I will ask the designer if she can, I know it's basically like a 4x4 as far as
Correct.
the ground
Yeah,
goes,
posts,
so
yeah.
I'll ask her.
It doesn't have to have special surrounds
Okay,
or anything.
I'll just ask her if she can find a place to just put it in so that it's there in the plan and
Cool.
that will
Placeholder.
make it easy. It's
Yeah.
placeholder.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. And then I'll report back to them.
Anything else? Oh, Joe, do you have anything you want to say to us?
No, this was kind of a last minute deal, that we brought this up. I appreciate you
Certainly will.
going forward helping us.
We're all in it together.
Yeah, and
Thank
that's what we do with the call, we do it for our community. We've got a good group of people that work for us. And they work hard, and as you know, Dale, because you're around this a lot. I appreciate, what I'm doing as president is taking people in our communities and spreading them out into the community to come to meetings like this. And be more active in this type of environment with the city council people, with the Parks Department. And the Rotary Club came up handy to help us plant the trees, the
Right.
memorial trees, we planted 8 of them. A couple more coming up at Arbor Day on
That's
April
right.
1st, so we appreciate the Rotary Club.
I might be here for
I
that.
think our organizations are working good together. So as the Frolic, we like to reach out and put our people with the Rotary clubs and the Lions clubs and be a little bit more proactive.
Now Rotary can put a name on a lot of trees that was planted in.
We
Oh,
planted,
they're tree, oh man, they don't know how to plant trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, everything was ready. All they had to do was fill in the dirt. I was far away when that was happening. But,
Okay.
May I update?
Yes.
What we're doing at the Grange.
Yes.
The line dancing is once a month. We have 45 to 50 people there every time. It's great. And the bluegrass jam and workshop, we've got about 30 on average there. So that's 2 huge circles of 15 people in jam. And thank you. And we're doing Talk Like a Pirate again this year. And I'm going to add a holiday sing-along in the beginning of December.
That'll
So,
be nice.
Well, that ought to be some here that's talked like a pirate. You know.
yes.
Can you tell me when there is somebody at the Grange?
Talk like a
And
pirate.
holiday single.
Holidays.
Combine the two.
I'll think about that.
Okay, so the meeting stands adjourned.
All right.
Okay, now I.